Alright, this video is going to be about compound sentences and how to diagram them, because I know as we move on with diagramming it gets a little bit more difficult and a lot of people start to struggle once we get to the compound sentence part. The main issue is really not the diagramming, the main issue is identifying the compound sentence. As you'll see later in this video, the diagramming when you break it down is really simple. It's just identifying a compound sentence that might cause the problem. So I want to review that first. So, compound sentence. Two independent clauses joined by a comma and conjunction. And so I put a little example up here. The tractor moved the wagon. That's an independent clause. They unloaded the hay. That's an independent clause. As a writer, you wouldn't want to have those two separate sentences. You'd want to put them together so it sounds better. So you have the tractor moved the wagon, comma, and they unloaded the hay. And so that gives us our compound sentence. There is another way for a compound sentence if you have the semicolon. We don't see that a lot, so we're not going to worry about it at this point yet. But there's a way to identify that and diagram it too. In the green down here, do not confuse with compound sentence parts. That's another problem. People see compound sentence parts and they want to diagram it as a compound sentence. If you have something like Bob and Jim, maybe Bob and Jim go to the game. That's a compound sentence part. That's where you use those brackets that we used earlier. For compound parts, not a compound sentence. Same as catch and pass. He caught and passed the ball. That's a compound predicate. That would get a bracket, but that's not a compound sentence. Compound sentence is the two independent clauses. So, moving on. Let's say we have that as a compound sentence. The tractor moved the wagon, comma, and they unloaded the hay. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that you diagram each independent clause. And so I'm just going to start with the tractor moved the wagon for this first part. And so all you would do is do the normal diagram that you would have for subject, verb, direct object, and you would just diagram the tractor moved the wagon. And as you can see, I went ahead and filled that in, and we have the tractor. Actually, this should be capitalized down here, so I kind of messed that up there a little bit. Should be a capital T. I overlapped it there. But the tractor, and then we have our verb moved, and then we go over to our direct object, wagon, and then we want to put the underneath wagon. So that's our first independent clause. That's what that would look like. Okay, so we go over then to the second part of our sentence, and we need they unloaded the hay. And so we just simply fill in they unloaded the hay. And I went ahead and filled that in to they unloaded the hay. They is our subject, unloaded is the verb, whom or what did they unload, hay, and then the. And once again, you can tell you have to master those parts before. Like you have to know what your direct object is and then it goes over here. You have to know your subject and your verb and where the thes go. But now that you've mastered that, making this part should be easy. And so now you've made two parts. Okay, you've made the tractor move the wagon and you have they unloaded the hay. Now, how do you possibly combine that to become a compound sentence? And this is what it will look like. You have your top part, the tractor moved the wagon. You have your bottom part, they unloaded the hay. Now, here's the key, your comma conjunction. You don't need to put your comma anywhere, but what you do is you make this dotted line, and it goes from underneath the verb, underneath moved, dotted line, and then a straight line coming over here, and it's bold. It's not dotted at all, and then a dotted line back down to the verb. Now, if you notice, like my subjects, they don't line up, on top of each other necessarily, so you kind of move this one over. That gives you the space to make the dotted, the straight line, and then the dot since it moves over. Now, the one thing that you will add is that you will actually put the conjunction right here on this bold line. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type and in. I'm going to put that right there on the bold line. And there you go. And that's your conjunction. Now, if it was a semicolon and you didn't have a conjunction with it because you did a compound sentence, it would still be pretty simple. You would basically just run this dotted line all the way down from verb to verb. That's all you would do with that, because you wouldn't need to have room for the conjunction. So it would look very similar, except for the dotted line will go all the way through. And we'll work with that later. But right now, we really want to focus on getting the basic down, because that's how your normal compound sentences will look like. And that's all there is to it. It's just a matter of taking your time, identifying each part of the independent clause, and then working with your diagrams. And you will have it.